Okay, so I know the title of this video is "What Medical School Never Taught You About Debt Payoff," and I actually don't have to go into any detail of what they didn't teach you because I know they didn't teach you anything. They didn't teach you anything. I mean, they don't teach you anything from K to 12. They don't teach you anything in undergrad. They don't teach you anything in grad school, law school, professional school, medical school. They don't teach you anything, right? And the system is purposely designed that way. Okay. I mean, if you take a look at Reddit posts from 5 to 10 years ago, the questions that people ask are still relevant today. You know, girl in medical school, $300,000 of debt. How will I pay this off? And look, in Canada, same problem Canadians have as they have in the US, and probably worse in the US. By Debt Debbie. Uh-oh. That sounds a little inappropriate. Wink, wink. Anyways, all right. So now, you kind of see like, hey, people have no idea how they're going to pay off the debt, even if they make good money. And, here's the secret about the banking system. The banking system loves doctors, right? And the reason why they love doctors is because they can make a lot of money off of them. And I don't know if you ever know the saying, banks don't lend money to people who need it. So even when you have $300,000 of debt, you actually don't need money if you're making, a really good income like $300,000. And if you don't believe me that banks love doctors, I mean, just type in mortgages for doctors on Google. Look at this: sponsor results, physician loans for doctors, available all 50 states. Get started online anytime. No PMI. Home loans for physicians, zero down for doctors. Loans for physicians, U.S. Bank. Medical professional mortgages, no PMI. You see how like the no PMI that the bank would never offer to any average person is being offered for doctors? That's crazy, right? Right. So this is what we're gonna do. I'm just gonna pretend that I'm a doctor and go over a debt payoff scenario using these numbers right here. So 16 grand after tax per income, that's about 300K. 16 grand per month, 14 grand in expenses, and $1,800 left over. So if you're making 16 grand a month and you don't have that much left over, I think it's a little bit painful because it feels like you're running on thin margins, which you probably are because you spend way too much, right? And so this is what we're going to do. We're going to use something called the velocity method to pay this debt off, right? So if you want to see what our budget is, 300K per month, which is about 16K monthly after tax. And then let's take a look at our expense breakdown. So how many debts do we have? 10 credit cards, right? 10 credit cards, an auto loan, a student loan, and a mortgage. And on top of that, we have our personal expenses that's not tied to debt. So what we're trying to do is make all of these debt payments go to zero, and then we still have to pay for this even if we're debt free: food, gas, insurance, all that other good stuff, property taxes. Yep. And so what we're going to do here, okay, is we're going to copy and then we're going to paste this, and we're going to assume that we have the same income and the same expenses, right? Same income, same expenses. And so this checking and savings, here's the difference between the left side and the right side, is that on the left side, basically we see the checking account as the final destination of our money. Whereas on the right side, it's the line of credit. So if you've never heard of a line of credit, it's basically a financial tool where you could borrow money, pay back, and then use it over and over again, right? So let's say we have an 8%. No, actually, you know what? We're a doctor. We're not going to limit ourselves to $30,000. We'll say we have a $200,000 8% line of credit, right? And maybe it's a home equity line of credit because that's the one that usually gives you big limits and lower interest rates. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is strategically move debt into that home equity line of credit, and who knows, maybe as a doctor, because banks love doctors, they'll give this to you. Okay. But usually, here's the rule of thumb when it comes to lending money: is that banks don't lend money to people who need it, right? That's why they literally have sponsored ads, which cost all of these companies money to put sponsored ads on Google to target physicians. Okay, so yeah, all right. Let me go back here. But remember, the golden rule for banks is that they don't lend money to people who need it because people who need money don't pay you back, right? But in this case, because we're doctors, we probably could get a line of credit. I don't know if we could get a line of credit with only $1,800 left over, but let's just assume for this exercise that we can. And even if you couldn't, you would have, you would have a better knowledge of this method of paying off debt with this unrealistic assumption for most people. Okay. So let's go ahead and rank our debts using something called the cash flow index. And if you don't know what the cash flow index is, actually, let me just do this. It's basically a formula of the balance of the debt divided by the monthly payment. Okay, so let me just do this. So balance of the debt divided by the monthly payment, and let me just show you here, equals 5000 divided by 175. And then you just essentially do this for all of your debts, right? So let me go ahead and do this. Do this for all of your debts. Okay. And then this essentially gives you a debt ranking system. So the lower the number, especially below 50, that's the one we want to pay off first. And then here, this last number, what it means is that we have to pay a lot of money and we don't get that much cash flow. So you see how in the student loans, $300,000 for 7% at 10 years, and we have to pay double than the mortgage, right? So, but we actually, even though it's similar amount to the mortgage, when we pay it off, we get more cash flow than the mortgage, right? So hopefully that makes sense. So it's about bang for a buck. So we don't want to pay $400,000 for this itty bitty payment. And is it really that little? Yeah, it's only $1,600. Wow. Okay. All right. So 1686 is our mortgage payment for a $400,000 house, and depending on where you live in the country, that could either be a mansion or that could be a shack, right? In I don't even know if a price of a home exists like in like the Bay Area or New York City. Probably not, right? Like New York City, Miami, you'd probably have like $2 million. I don't know. I actually don't know, but that's probably would be the price of housing there, not 400K. But in some parts of the country, 400K is a huge mansion, right? So it depends on where you live. All right, so now what we're going to do is we've ranked our debt using the cash flow index, and then we'll just move the ones below 50 into the line of credit, because the ones the low numbers means we're going to get a lot of bang for our buck. So 5, 8, 15, 27, 37, 10, 35, 12, 15. And then I'm going to go ahead and sum it up, right? So 164K. So 164. Okay. And then guess what happens here once we just move that $164,000 into a line of credit? Okay. Well, all of these payments just go to zero because all we did was a debt balance transfer, right? And then you see that this $1,800 turns into $7,000. Yeah, I know. You stare at this and you're, like, how did that happen? Because the income is the same, but we're just redirecting our flow of money so it doesn't benefit the bank. It would benefit you, right? I mean, literally, this is the same numbers, left side, right side, same income. We just shifted our debts to another place called the line of credit. And then now this $1,840 turns into $7,000 of cash flow. And then what we're going to do as the final step is we're going to dump all of our 16 grand paycheck into the line of credit, take our expenses out, and then rinse and repeat over and over again. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. So we're going to take a previous month's balance, previous month's interest minus our cash flow. And then what we're going to do is take the average daily balance, multiply it by the interest rate, and then divide by 12. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste, and then copy and paste. So now we're putting our entire paycheck into the line of credit. Now you might be asking, well, couldn't we just put our entire paycheck into other debts? And the answer to that is it's going to be hard, right? Because the line of credit's the only tool where the $16,000, when it goes in, it could immediately come out. So we have the ultimate flexibility in the movement of our money. Whereas even with the credit card, even though a credit card is technically a line of credit, if we put this entire $16,000 and let's say one of these credit cards, can we use that credit card now to pay off other things? The answer to that is not no, because you can't use one credit card to pay another unless it's a balance transfer. And those are stressful because those take 2 weeks. Whereas with the line of credit, you could pull out the money in like seconds, right? And also, you can do that with the auto loans. Yeah, I mean, you can't do that with the auto loan, student loan, or a mortgage, right? If I overpay one of these, like put my entire 16 grand in payments or in my income into the student loan, I can't pay the mortgage, I can't pay the auto loan, I can't pay the credit card, but with the line of credit, you can do that, okay? So now let's just kind of go over here. And then we see that in month 26, okay, month 26, we pretty much paid it all off. 164K, 26 months, 164K. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste, right? And then we have these three, the auto loan, student loan, and the mortgage. And so, okay, so now we got to figure out what the current balances of these are at 26 months. So I'm just going to do this, 26, 26, 26. And then we see that we have a low cash flow index here. So we're just going to follow the model, even though we have a higher interest rate here, right? Why this one is because you get more bang for your buck in terms of cash flow for paying it off, right? 26 grand for 800 bucks or 251 grand for 3,400. I'm going to take this one now. Let's pay it off immediately. And you know, there is some overlap between the methods because technically this would also count for the snowball as well. But it doesn't always apply, but in this situation it would. So 26597.37. All right, it's 0.37. Oh, geez. 597.37. All right, so now we see that it gets paid off in month 30, but don't worry, we didn't increase that cash flow yet because we need an extra 800 bucks. Okay, extra 800 bucks. I forgot somehow numlock turned off. I was trying to put in the number, but I'm going to go ahead and do this. So copy and paste, and then this was going to be 7830.33. Copy and paste, and then look at that. In 29 months, the auto loan got paid off. Excellent, excellent. Okay, wow, is that just 2 more months? 29. Okay, 3 more months. 29 months, and then this is going to be 164 plus 45, and this will be 209K. And then we have the student loan and the mortgage, and then there's going to be 29, 29, and then it'll be 0, and then now $245,000. So here's kind of a general rule of thumb, right? If the interest rate of the loan is lower than the line of credit, and this number is relatively high, one of the things that you can do to pay it off without really much regard to the interest rate is pay it off in pieces or pay it off in chunks. Much more effective than moving an entire loan into a line of credit, especially if the interest rate is lower, right? So I just want you to know that replacing a loan with a line of credit versus doing it in pieces are 2 different things. But you know what? For this scenario, I'm just going to be a little bit lazy. Actually, do I even have a big enough line of credit to move it here? No, it's only 200,000. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to pay it off in pieces. Okay, so 7% with the 8% line of credit. And so we have this calculator right here. All I got to do is just put in the numbers, and then it should tell us if we pay it off incrementally in sweeps, right? Using a line of credit, how long it would take. And let me just kind of go in here. And so this is going to be 16 grand. So 16000. And then what's the expenses? It's everything except for the loan we're trying to pay off. And then we're going to do this. So that's 4686.42. So that'll be 4686.42. Okay, and then what's the original balance? 300. Oh, not 30,000. We went to med school. 300,000, and then that would be 245,406.78. Right. So 245,406.78, and then the interest rate is 7%, and the payment amount is. Let me just go here. Where did it go? 3483.25. 3483.25. Okay. So now let's just move this into line of credit in pieces. I just want to do a quick comparison because the interest rate is so similar. I want to see how much more we pay if we move the entire thing into line of credit. So look at this, 18 grand of interest right now. So it's about 2 grand more, okay? 2 grand more, not a big deal. So that's why I say when you move the loan into a line of credit with the similar interest rate, you know, it's not that big of a deal, but you'll see in the 30-year mortgage, it is, okay? So we'll see that it takes us 2 years to pay off that student loan debt. So girl in medical school might want to see this from 9 years ago. I got to be a time traveler and, you know, show up kind of like Back to the Future. Right? Like, Marty, actually, I can't even do a impression of Doc Brown. But anyways, all right, so now let me go back here. Okay, let me see this. All right, so this is 2 years. So that's going to be 29 plus 24. So that's going to be 53 months. And then this is going to be 509K. Okay, 509K. All right, so this is going to be 0. And then this is going to be a mortgage at 53 months. What's the balance? So this would be 0 and then 53. And then we see it's 361 grand in the mortgage balance. Okay, so we just do the same thing again. Okay, so let me just do this right here. And now the only difference is that we account for in our expenses everything except for the loan we're trying to pay off. So the expenses is now 3,000. 30 years, low interest rate, 400 grand. And what's the current balance? The current balance is 361,151.52. 361,151.52. And then the payment amount is, take a look here, 1686.42. Okay, so we see here that the mortgage takes 2.5 years to pay off, right? So now this is going to be 0. And, you know, look at me casually saying, oh, the mortgage just got paid off in 2.5 years and, you know, make it seem like it's no big deal. All right, so 6.92 years, we are debt free. And that would actually be 909K of debt. Almost $1 million of debt in 7 years. And so now we have what we call rich people problems, because now our cash flow per month is about 13 grand. And if you've ever had a lot of savings before in your life, I'm going to tell you what the nervousness is about having too much savings, is that you feel like your money's eroding because of inflation. That's literally like what you call rich people problems. So poor people problems is like, oh my goodness, I have all this debt, I wish I could save money. Rich people problems is I have too much in savings, so I wish I could invest it, right? Okay. All right. Well, that's it for today, folks. So what medical school never taught you about debt payoff? The answer to that is they never taught you anything, and they certainly didn't teach you this. And I got to create a time travel machine so I can talk to Debbie from 9 years ago. Okay. All right. Well, that's it. Have a great day, and I'll see you on the next video.